Hello and welcome to Move the Line Prop Drop Show presented by Thrive Fantasy. I'm Ryan Noonan, back to talk about the best way and the most profitable way. 11-1 last week, fellas, to bet on NFL football, and that is player props. We're going to be live here, 2 p.m. Eastern every Friday, giving you our favorite player props on the board and taking your questions. So if you're hanging out on YouTube, subscribe so you don't miss a show. Smash the like button for us. It goes a long way in helping us. And share the show with your friends. We talked about it last night on the game preview show. This is not fantasy football. Communal wins are fun. You're not competing with your friends, so share the love. Share the show. It's free. And jump in the chat. Let us know what your favorite prop is for the week. Any thoughts on a play? Feel free to ask us. Let's have an active chat today. We'll get to some questions at the end. Joining me here, as always, in the great, luscious state of Florida with a new backdrop and hopefully some decent internet, Connor Allen.
Yeah, I think I'm operating on arguably the slowest internet I've ever been on. I think it was upload speeds of 4 megabytes per second. Didn't think that was even possible, but we're here. We're alive. We're in Florida, and we'll try and make it through the show.
It looks decent camera-wise, and you sound okay, so not too bad. We'll see how it goes.
You know what your move should be. Listen, I'm not a props professional, but I am a video professional. You need to get some textbooks. I don't know if you're in your college home or why are you in Florida?
For a wedding.
Okay, for a wedding. So find the registry. It's probably really huge. Just prop your laptop up on it. Shoot down. That's always you always want the camera slightly above eye line. That's where you want to be with a camera.
You can get like up here, and you
want it to be a bit more level, but yeah, that's where you want to be.
Yeah. This is mid-show adjustment right here, Pat. This is great.
I'm sure Sal loves that. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it doesn't matter how good or bad that you look in real life. If you're pointing up, you're going to look bad. You point down, you're going to look a whole lot better.
Yeah. And we get to see where the magic happens behind you a little bit there. It's not bad.
Yeah, it says play more.
Push those twins together, you have a party going.
Yeah, I thought my wife was trying to send me a message there with the separate beds there, when I walked in, but I think we're doing okay.
It's only been a couple of months. You should still be on the honeymoon period for sure. So, but it looks like it's holding up okay. Obviously here as well, joining us in the space every week is the man behind the Mayo Media Network and the Pat Mayo Experience. It's the man himself, Pat Mayo. How are we doing today?
Doing very well after last week. Doing pretty well after Thursday Night Football too. Juwan Johnson, what a hero.
Yeah, champion. I had the Juwan Johnson play too. It took us a little bit of a sweat there at the end and then got there on garbage time, which is perfect. That's what we want. So,
well, it was nice too, because they opened the Hopkins line at 61.5. And I was like, well, that's going to be an over. Let's just pencil that one in. So that was great.
Yeah. They peppered him, dominated the target share. Be interested to see if that kind of continues. We're complaining too, because they were just using him like last year, boundary Jamison Crowder, like a lot of dink and dunk stuff. So, but if the volume is going to be there, that's going to make up for all of those issues. So
I would think so. Yes.
All right, let's, before we do, I want to remind you, before we get into all the stuff here, 2 episodes every week. Just talked about it briefly on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Prop Drop is going to be on Fridays. Game preview on Thursday nights, just before Thursday Night Football, 6:45 p.m. Eastern. John Daigle, Connor, and myself. We had Ben Solak from The Ringer on last night. Solak is fantastic. You will become a smarter football fan by listening to that show, talking some more sides and totals and game previews there. Lots of good stuff there. So again, if you're subscribing, you'll check that out as well. And also want to tell you about how to get a $20 betting subscription at 444. It costs a lot more than that, but through our friends over at Thrive Fantasy, you can get it for just $20. And you get a free t-shirt. Actually, that's going to go until the weekend. So go over to thrivefantasy.com or download the app today. Use our promo code 444. Deposit $20. Your initial deposit will be matched up to $250. So you can do it for $250. You'll get $500 in your account. You can jump into their tournaments, help them fill those things. Lots of fun ways to bet on props. We'll get to some of that later in the show. You got to be a new Thrive user, new Thrive account, email, and must use that promo code 444. We'll reach out to you in details on how to activate your sub shortly thereafter, but a great way to partner with them. Again, new Thrive users only. If you have questions, this is good for new or existing 444 subs. If you reach out to us at support, we'll just go ahead and extend your subscription for another year. And the betting subscription gets you everything on the site. We're doing NBA props right now, still doing MMA every weekend. We'll be doing college basketball, And again, if you're doing DFS, season long, high stakes, all that stuff too, literally gets you access to everything on the site. So thrivefantasy.com, promo code 444. All right, Connor, while we have you, hopefully the internet continues to hold up. We'll let you get started with, again, no pressure. 11-1 last week, and the one was yours. So
it was. I let the team down, but we're going to get off to a great start here. I like Kenneth Walker to go over his rushing yard total. It's at 67.5 right now. He got 21 of 23 running back carries last week for the Seahawks. Now draws the Chargers defense that has been getting wrecked on the ground, 28th in run defense EPA. If you look at some of the performances that they've allowed on the ground this season, they allowed 66 yards to Latavius Murray, literally a corpse signed off of a practice squad. They allowed 134 yards to Nick Chubb, 134 to Dameon Pierce, 100 to James Robinson, and 74 yards on just 8 carries. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Kenneth Walker so far ranking 5th in broken tackle rate among running backs with 20-plus carries so far. I think this number should be in the low to mid 70s. I can understand how some projections just don't get there, but I really think that even if he's getting like 12 to 15 carries, this is a great bet with him ripping off a long one. And if game script goes well, he could easily be in the 15 to 20 carry range, and he's going over 100 yards here.
Yeah, he looked good last week. Elusive running back 3 in elusive rating last week. He was 3rd in rushing yards over expectation per attempt. Big breakaway runs. I'm in this with you here. I think it's a great look. Obviously, we know still a problem with the Chargers and stopping the run. Pat, what do you think about Kenneth Walker here?
I have him over very slightly. I think my perception would be the same as Connor's, where I think that he probably does get around 100 yards in this spot, but it could be very game flow dictated as well. Like Seattle's defense sucks. So if they fall behind 14-0 or 10-0 really early, which is not inconceivable against the Chargers, even though they're kind of banged up at the moment. I feel like it's a lot like the Kamara thing from Thursday night, that if you had gone over the 64.5, like that was a lock. And then Dalton threw 2 pick sixes and they didn't run the ball again the rest of the game. You're like, oh, well, he was averaging like 8 yards a carry. They probably should have just kept doing that, and that would have worked. Like that'd be my only hesitation on this. My projection has him at 72 yards on 14 carries, and I think that even the yards per carry on that is probably pretty low for going against the Chargers. So I completely get it. Wouldn't be my number one because it's not my number one.
What is your number one?
Kenny Pickett under rushing yards. I'm gonna win on this every single week. It's now down to 13.5. Nothing has been better in the NFL season so far than him coming in that Jets game and rushing for the 2 touchdowns, because it has set this precedent that he's someone who runs the ball. He doesn't, and he's coming off a concussion. So doubt he's going to be running too much against the Dolphins and their super blitz-happy packages. Maybe because of the over-blitzing, the cover 0, he sees some daylight, goes, you're not going to win it every single week, but you're going to win it close to every single week. So Kenny Pickett, 13.5 rushing yards, under. Now that Cooper Rush is back on the bench, we got to find someone else to dogpile on every week. It's this under.
I saw it drop a little bit ago, not too long before we got on the show, and I'm like, Pat's going to have this one on the card this week for sure. So we should get bet on stuff like that. That would work. But Connor, any thoughts there on the matchup with the man? I know we talk about sometimes we lean man or rushing yards over, but to Pat's point, like, I think that's a good like system bets, but like this dude's not running, and it is definitely inflated off of a really small 1-game sample when he first came in there. What are your thoughts?
And to the point about the concussion there, I mean, some quarterbacks are willing to like take more hits or just like kind of like pile through some guys going forward for an extra yard. He's going to be running out of bounds. Like Kyler Murray-esque almost, where like he could get forward another yard or 2, but instead just like kind of, skirts off out of bounds or like runs backwards a yard to like kind of avoid contact. So I think that if he does run, you're probably going to be looking at a similar situation to that. So he would truly need like an open field there to get over this number.
And additionally too, especially with Tua in this game, if he takes a hit and doesn't get up right away, he's out of the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good look. All right,
well,
so I'm going back.
A good look, but
that's not a good look.
I'm good look in my pocketbook.
Yeah. I'm going back to the well on something that worked last week as well. I'm growing under 26.5 passing attempts from Marcus Mariota. I gave out completions on the show last week. Also mentioned that we like the under on attempts too. They both came in fairly comfortably, even though he like threw for 95% completion percentage. He's topped this once all season back in week 1. He's coming off of 14 attempts last week against San Francisco. And now they're facing this Bengals team without DJ Reader. And attacking Cincinnati on the ground is a great way to go. Solak broke that down extensively last night on our show. There's some pretty big splits on Reader in the lineup and out of the lineup as far as like yards per carry. I think it's like 3.8 yards per carry against Cincinnati with him in the lineup. It's been 6.2 the last couple of weeks without him. And we know this is basically what they want to do. Arthur Smith wants to run. They get creative with their run schemes. And over the past 3 weeks, the Falcons have a pass rate over expectation of minus 17.5%, which is more than twice the run rate of the Bears, who we think of as a team that just refuses to throw the ball. So Mariota comfortably for me under 26.5 pass attempts. I can get there on the completions again, but I think this number is just a mistake. It's minus 109 on Caesars, still out there on DraftKings and BetMGM as well at minus 110. What are your thoughts, Pat?
I think Atlanta covers, so I like it. Anytime that Atlanta is going to be in a game and come close to covering, Mariota is just simply not going to pass the ball. Even if they get blown out, he barely passes the ball. So I do like this one. And it's funny what you mentioned about Atlanta and their run below or their pass below expectation. And I kind of hopped on what you did. I made a massive wager on, I think his name is Zach Collins on the Cardinals last night, whoever their linebacker is.
Xavier Collins.
Xavier Collins, sure, the guy who scored the touchdown. But he was plus 110 to have 6.5 or more than 6.5 tackles in that game. It's like, well, besides Atlanta, the Saints actually run over expectation way more than any other team in football. Like, this is a perfect recipe for trying to hit these tackle props that you talked about. I don't even know who these guys are. And I'm like, well, I just kind of search who has the most tackles, who is playing for the Cardinals. Oh, middle linebacker. Well, the Cardinals rush defense is terrible at the defensive line level. Kamara is good. He keeps getting to the second level. This is a perfect match, right? And it was. So I would even be looking, who's Cincinnati's linebacker? Just over for them.
We got this. We got a couple this week. we have actually their starting linebacker, Logan Wilson's probably going to be out. So Jermaine Pratt is going to be their main guy this week. They have a second guy, depending on if Wilson is for sure out, Akeem Davis Gaither. These guys are actually like tackle machines. Pratt is a beast. He is 9, 8, and 14 the last 3 weeks. That's with Wilson in the lineup. So yeah, he's probably one of my favorite 2 or 3 bets this week. I'm interested to see if they post Davis Gaither at all. He barely plays. He played like one game over 50% of the snaps. He played 69% of the snaps in week 3 against the Jets, 13 tackles. Again, another team that likes to run the football quite a bit. So yeah, I think these guys are great looks in the tackle streets. Even if you can go to Von Bell, who's their box safety, who will probably play quite a bit of box snaps, probably be like 5.5. I think those are all pretty good looks, to be honest, on Cincy's side. So yeah, I got a few tackle props to share with you guys later at the end.
Sweet. Yeah. No, I think that's the correlation that you want. The teams that pass below expectation and just load up on linebackers or strong safeties.
Yep.
You started a movement, Noonan. I mean, this is like, we tweeted out a contest, or not a contest. It was like, share a good bet that you made with 4 for 4, tag us and we'll send you a shirt or whatever. I'm not getting you, like, at least 75% of the people were tweeting out tackle prop wins and not like player prop wins, tagging you in it. And I was like, wow, times are changing here. This is great.
Linebackers are players too.
I was gonna say, how much feedback did you get from being on my golf show this week and then giving out the tackle prop that people hit?
We hit Alex Singleton, the guy at 8.5. He had 21. He had 9 with like 6 minutes left in the second quarter. This is insane. So yeah, I mean, that in itself. You get the Mayo golf audience tailing you on tackle props. It's a pretty good spot to be in. So it worked out pretty well. We're going to continue. 7-1 last week in the tackle streets, and we're going to find the edge, and we're going to press. So, Connor, back to you for bet number 2.
Yeah, bet number 2 for me is another over. I like David Njoku over 36.5 receiving yards. I mean, I would play it up to 40 here with better juice if you don't want to lay anything like a minus 120. But after week 1, he's been way more involved. He's seen 5 or more targets in every game, 20% target share since week 1. In the last 4 weeks, 58, 88, 73, and 89 receiving yards in those 4 games. We have 59 receiving yards projected, which is a little bit bullish, but still, I think that this line should be at least in the low 40s here at a minimum. Also, I like the chances of the Ravens scoring a lot of points in this game, and the Browns maybe forcing them to pass a little bit more. So I think that with an elevated game state here, like Njoku's ceiling could be raised even more, and 36.5 just felt a little bit too low for me as well, especially when considering our projections.
Yeah, I'm in this game, and I'll get to that with one of mine later, so I don't hate this at all. Pat, do you have any thoughts on Njoku, who started to really emerge as basically the number 2 pass catcher here?
Well, I'm trying to fill it out right now. It's funny that you say that you're in this game. I had planned on being in this game, but maybe I should give that one up from the Brown side as well, which is kind of funny to think about. Per my numbers, the single best prop of the week is Jacoby Brissett over 18.5 completions.
Wow.
Okay.
So if we could throw together a same gamer here, because I love Cooper over everything too. I actually just like the Browns in this game by and large. Like the one I was going to mention off the top is Chubb. His over-under rushing is 71.5. That's so low.
This is your Derrick Henry thing from a couple weeks
It
ago
is.
in that matchup against the Colts, right? Where it's matchup driven and it's like 20 yards off of what his market's been all season.
Yeah, my projections have, projections aren't always going to be right. But the one good thing that projections do, it gets out your bias. It's not like the Ravens have a bottom 10 rush defense. It's just they're usually winning early in games, so teams don't normally run a lot against them. That tends to be the issue. But I haven't projected at 94 rushing yards.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a good same game parlay here too, because I like Amari Cooper too. We could put that in the
So
same game parlay
let's
for
try
sure.
this out here. Passing props will go, I think Brissett goes over 219. I think he goes over 18.5 completions, over 30.5. Like that's the one drawback to this. If these things hit, the Chubb thing probably comes as an under, right?
Yeah, but the Chubb thing too, the way he plays, like you can just get that one, right? Like he can just grind out 2-3 at a time and then just break that one and you're still probably live.
So we can go Brissett over passing, Brissett over completions, Brissett over attempts, Amari Cooper over 56.5 yards, Njoku over 37.5. And that gets us up to, why isn't this letting me play the same game parlay? Because there we go. Independently, I like all 5 of those props, and I'll click on same game parlay and see what it gives me. What do you think this comes out to? Do you think it's better than 10-1 or no?
Yeah. I think so, probably.
Yeah.
So over, we can get alternate passing yards on Jacoby Brissett. Probably don't want to do that, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't get too wild with alts on Brissett. Well, I wish they'd offer Lamar's rushing yards because that would be a nice little addition sprinkled in here too.
So do we want to go 30 plus or 35 plus passing attempts? What do I even project it at? I have him at, where are you at, Jacoby Brissett? Not high. Actually pretty high. He's inside the top 10 of scorers this week on DraftKings too for me. I am exactly at 35 attempts, so I'll go over 30 on that. It doesn't seem like we're going to get completions as a part of this. Receiving props, Amari Cooper. I mean, I like him to go for over the 59.5. That's fun. And then Njoku, you had 39, right, Connor?
I did 36, but I think up to 40 is fine. So 39 is good.
Yeah, 39.5. We'll go over that. Pays plus money too. I mean, it's not that good. You go those 4 together, it's plus 475. I feel like they're kind of taking a dump on you with that one.
Yeah. It's funny how those same game parlays work. But yeah, you can get you wait a little bit. You add the over on Lamar rushing, which would probably be like high 50s. He's gone for over 58 in 5 of 6 games against this team. I think like 3 games over 90. Just kind of has their number. And if, I don't know, the backfield's kind of a mess, I don't know what's going on with Andrews or not, but yeah, I think Lamar rushing is a pretty good look too. So I wouldn't mind sprinkling that in. Connor, that was number 2 for you, Pat. How about number 2 for you?
I'm going to go with the quarterback, and I'm going to take another under on this one. Dak Prescott under 257.5 passing yards in his first game back against the Lions. But it's against the Lions. They don't play defense. That's all fair. I completely understand that part of it. Here's the thing. Unless they completely change their playbook, which they shouldn't, because their offensive game plan with Cooper Rush is what they should have been doing with Dak the whole time. Dak is just more aggressive. He takes more chances. He doesn't need to do that. He's just better than Cooper Rush. So all these incompletions and stalled drives that you've seen the past 4 weeks from Cooper Rush, those are extended drives with Dak Prescott. He doesn't need to be throwing 80 yards downfield to Michael Gallup. Just throw Dalton Schultz over the middle. You'll be fine. But they're going to want to run in this game. They're going to successfully run in this game. I just don't need to see. It works one of 2 ways. I think game plan wise that the under comes through pretty well. I haven't projected at 217 yards, so it's 40 yards below what his over under is set at the moment. Plus, his thumb still might be a problem. Remember what happened with Russell Wilson in this last year? It's like Russ is cooking. Oh, he like broke his thumb or something. It's like, oh, he's coming back. Oh, against the Packers, he's going to annihilate them. He threw for like 30 yards.
Yeah, the range of outcomes here are, I think, pretty vast, but I don't think that there's a massive ceiling here either, even in this matchup, because I think your point is correct. They'll be able to run, and they don't have to push him. We're usually pretty bullish on passing yard overs, just from our projections, but we're right on the number on Dak. So yeah, I don't hate that look at all. I do think there's going to be a lot of running back carries here. Connor, what do you think about Dak?
What do you guys think about attempts instead or completions? Because I feel like both of those would be great looks too. Rather than, because like the Lions defense is really bad, as you mentioned, but I don't know if you can find like a good attempts prop under. Like I feel like they're not just going to like let him loose and like sling it right away, like you guys mentioned. I haven't looked at that number though. I think if you get like 34 or 35, I mean that seems like it'd be pretty high. I don't know what you guys have your numbers at though.
Let's see. Pass attempts for Mr. Dak Prescott is, they don't have him. Oh no, there he is. 34 and a half.
Right on the number.
And that puts me at, where the hell is Dak? Gotta scroll down to find Dak. Let's see him here. I am at 29 attempts.
Yeah, we have him at 33. I mean,
so even if you split the difference, it's still way under.
Yeah. I think all of those are good unders, to be honest. You could probably just, spray the board.
It looks like that's taking some action on DraftKings. It's minus 165 to the under 34.5. MGM is minus 125 on 34.5. So definitely a easier pill to swallow there. I like that. I do think there's going to be a lot of running back carries here, and we'll do the tackle props in here because there's a nice little one here. Deshaun Elliott for the Lions, box safety. Tracy Walker's their safety. He's been out the last 2 games, and Elliott's taken on this role and has been an absolute monster. 2 games in the new role as a box safety, 100% of the snaps, plays about 40% in the box, 12 tackles and 11 tackles. No chance he's hung at like anything more than like 7.5. Just kind of like a high end for a safety, unless you're, a couple outliers here. Derwin James is like a guy that gets hung pretty high for a safety. So yeah, Deshaun Elliott, one of my other favorites, and kind of correlates well here. You can't unfortunately do same game parlays with tackle props, but building kind of the game state that we think here, under on attempts, a lot of carries, a lot of tackles. So,
well, you can't really correlate much here, but like on Prize Picks, you can go Dak under the passing attempts at 34 and then Zeke over 15.5 rushing attempts.
Prize Picks will let they'll throw in, nothing's out there now. There's literally no tackle props in the market right now.
No, but they appear on like Sunday morning.
They do. Yeah, I put together a tackle only Prize Picks play in our Discord last week that came through for us. So yeah, we wait until Sunday and then we'll attack. We'll take whatever they give us. So you can correlate that there. My next one, prop number 2 for me. I'll just do this one now. I'm going to go Amari Cooper because we were just talking about this. I played it at 55.5. I think it's crawled up 56, 57. I think it's still in play. He's got 10 or more targets in 4 of the last 5, 12 last week against the Pats. Pats play a lot of man. He only caught 4 for 44, but Brissett is significantly worse against man on the season than he is against zone. About 10% success rate difference there. Cooper's seen 28% target share this season. It's about 7% higher than his best mark ever. So getting as much volume, more volume than he ever has. From a yards per route run standpoint, it's been a little bit disappointing, but like from an expected standpoint, that's just tying to his quarterback efficiency. He's like top 3% on the year. So I think the volume is going to help alleviate some of the efficiency concerns. I think Pat is encouraging me too here with his thoughts around Jacoby Brissett being more efficient. So I think going yards over is probably the better look than a reception line, just because we take out a little bit of that volatility. It's got like a 12.3 ADOT. So we can break it on a couple of big plays here, like this game environment in general. So yeah, Amari over 55.5. I would play it comfortably, probably below 60. I'm comfortable going over there. So kind of another addition and a little bit more, I think, detail to why you'd want to add that to your same game parlay. So no need to add any of that. I think we've already kind of talked about it. Connor, come back to you with prop number 3.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I do want to add that I'm very jealous of your tackle props that you get to just like speculate on what the number will be at, almost like we used to with like with props, like regular ones. And so, and they would always be where we guessed, and it would be easy overs and, easy unders. And now the market is just, sharpening up a little bit. But I'm not sure I can hop in the tackle prop streets yet, but maybe someday I'll follow your lead. My third one here, one that I really like, David Montgomery under 55.5 rushing yards on Monday Night Football. Pats have limited two of the best rushing teams in football the last 2 weeks. Browns and Lions average just 4.05 yards per carry. Now Patriots at home, 8-point favorites. Matt Eberflus also talked about how the Bears will be riding the hot hand going forward, as Khalil Herbert looked really good last week. So he may be even more involved. I expect this game just to be kind of a slaughter, to be honest. I expect Bill Belichick to really focus on what the Bears do best, which is essentially run the ball and, force Fields to throw and confuse them as much as possible. And if the game gets out of hand, the Bears are going to have to throw, and they have been throwing a little bit more than they were early on in the season. And so I do think that volume can be a concern here. Efficiency could be a concern. We have less than 50 rushing yards projected. So I think that this is a solid look here. And I think the floor on Montgomery is like super, super low if Khalil Herbert outplays him in the first quarter.
And the hot hand thing I think is interesting. Pat, what are your thoughts on DMont?
I don't buy it. I do like the under, but I don't buy this hot hand approach whatsoever. Okay. They're going to run 2 drives with Montgomery, 1 drive with Herbert. They're just going to go back to what they did in week 1 because it just hasn't been working for them. And it's just so weird to see, as good as Herbert looked while Montgomery was out, even before Montgomery had been out with the injury, to have David Montgomery come back and then all of a sudden he's like the only guy playing in the backfield. It made absolutely no sense to me.
It was weird. Yeah, because we thought like Herbert had earned a bigger share. And you said even in kind of mixing in, he looked good. And then, you feel like you give him more opportunities to perform, and you come back and it's just Montgomery. We just want to ride him out. So I think it's a good look, Connor.
Yeah, no, I think the great part about the handicap is that, like, even if it is 2-1, I think that there's still a lot of ways that Montgomery gets there. And so, like if it's not 2-1, it's like 50-50, like Montgomery is like almost surely getting there. And if it's 2-1, I still think there's a good chance that he gets there.
Yeah. Pat, how about you? Number 3.
Hi, sorry, I was just looking at J.D. McKissick under rushing yards, but it's right on the periphery. It's 10.5, and since Brian Robinson has been active, he has 2 carries in 2 games. So you got to watch everything. The problem is with the 10.5, I wish there was a pass or rushing attempts prop for him, is that the only time he runs the ball are like 3rd and 27 draws, which he can just get 13 yards on. No one cares.
So dumb. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a problem with that one. I'm going to go with that Nick Chubb prop. I like the Brissett over completions. I like everything in that game, but hell, that's like 2 good runs for Nick Chubb. And he's been the league's best rusher so far. The Patriots took him out. It happens. The Patriots are probably the best scheme team in all of football. But it has to be a blind bet, man. The guy's averaging almost around 100 yards a game. It's 30 below that. And as I mentioned, the Ravens are a bottom 10 rush defense. And if you get him to 15 carries in this game, he is going to obliterate this number. And I would just find it hard to believe that he wouldn't get there. So 71.5 over rushing yards for me.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's such a good process, just like the Henry thing. But the Henry thing was actually, you could make the case that was a difficult matchup. At the time we came in, and the Colts were leading the league in basically any run defensive metric.
Sure. But what can you really glean from a 3-game sample or a 2-game sample at the time? You really can't. Like,
for sure.
Like that's actually a good time to try to go after some of the quote unquote good units in football, because the sample is just complete variance.
Yeah. And even the point here is that this isn't even the case for the Ravens. They're not even a team that we should be shying away from running back carries or yards from. And Chubb's just kind of a dude that, maybe might not get there from just sheer volume, but like he could just pop one. Like this is good. You could turn this on in like 2 minutes into the game, and Chubb just ran down the sideline for 60, and you're good. Like you just need him to not get hurt in the first half, and you're probably fine, right? It might be low efficiency the rest of the way, but it's just a dude that could do that. So yeah.
And there are a few running backs who are like that. Like I would put Derrick Henry as a part of that. Nick Chubb is a part of that. Saquon obviously is a part of that. Now I know these they're the very elite guys. You know who I am going to throw into that? He doesn't get the volume to really necessitate it, but his number is way lower. Travis Etienne is like that. Like 1 cut gone. Pierce, 1 cut gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's my next one is Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce over 69.5. rushing yards. Looks like we're back. So I've hit it at 66.5. I saw it fly out to 69.5, 67.5. Absolute smash still.
Wow. Good. I had it written down as on my short list at 69.5. So I'm glad to hear it's lower.
Yeah, we'll take it. I mean, he is that guy. We've seen a shift. We had that wonky week 1 where we had nothing but good coach speak, and even like not using him in preseason games with Dameon Pierce. And then they come out week 1 and it's Rex Burkhead. And everyone, no idea what's going on. Since then, 79%, 80%, 100%, and 81% of the carries the past 4 games. The offensive line has improved. They're 12th in adjusted line yards on the season. The Raiders' run D is in the middle of the pack. They're 19th in success rate. Again, not a team that we need to shy away from. Dameon Pierce forced 17 missed tackles the last time we saw him against Jacksonville. That is the most ever charted in a single game by PFF since they've been doing this. This guy just has a little bit of juice, and he can get this done in a big, big way. I was a blind over, so 70 for me was kind of like I would hope to get him in the 60s. And yeah, we're still in that range, and I'm with Pat here. I think this is a guy that is kind of putting himself in that from a big play perspective, and he's just staying on the field more too. Like they talked about it, how, this isn't necessarily for the prop, but like they talked about how they were getting really clear to read when they were bringing in Rex Burkhead for passing game work. So they wanted to keep Pierce in. So we've actually seen his like targets per route run and targets run increase too. So I think just kind of overall total yards, even for Pierce, is probably a good look. He's just going to continue to come off the field, fewer and fewer snaps each week. So over 67.5, I think, is a great play on Dameon Pierce. Connor, what do you think here?
What do you think about like the game script, like concerns at all? Do you think that even matters or no?
Well, I mean, what's the game script concern? That the Raiders cover the spread in the fourth quarter? Because the Texans have been really good through 3 quarters in almost every game this season.
They have been, but I mean, the spread is, telling us that they should win, that they could win by more than a touchdown. I mean, that's fair. Like, I think that's like the same kind of possibility as like the Seahawks Chargers. Maybe the Chargers are more explosive than the Raiders, but that would be my only concern with Pierce. Other than that, I think that it's solid.
Yeah, that's fair. They actually have switched a little bit too. Davis Mills has been so bad. They've shifted from like a pretty surprisingly heavy pass rate team to running a little bit more now, I think, because they trust Pierce. So we've seen that shift there as well. They ran really, and again, the game script worked against Jacksonville last time out. That was their highest, run rate over expectation on the season. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of with Pat. Like, I think that they hang around. I think the Raiders probably hanging on them, but at the same time, like, I think the Texans kind of are alive to stick around for a little bit. So Pierce is just so good. It's the breaking tackles thing. We know that there's a lot of noise in running back data and stats. Like, broken tackle rate is pretty sticky, and I think it is a great indicator of skill. And this dude is doing it at a pretty elite rate. So I understand those concerns for sure, but I like this number quite a bit. So good with it. Connor, take us home. Number 4.
Yeah, my last one. It's not something that's out yet, but I think this is probably one of my strongest plays. Whenever it comes out, I don't really even care the numbers. Zach Wilson under pass attempts. 25.5, 24.5, 23. I don't like. He's probably going to throw the ball like 20 or fewer times here against the Broncos. Right now, they are, the spread's close to even. I don't anticipate Russell Wilson playing. Even if he does play, the offense has been so bad. It doesn't matter. The Jets defense has been playing a lot better as of late. I don't anticipate the Broncos getting out to any kind of lead here. The Jets have been running it way, way more since Zach Wilson came back. They were first in pass rate with Joe Flacco, 14th in PR pass rate over expectation. That's dropped significantly with Zach Wilson here. They've gone to a completely run-first team. We faded Elijah Moore last week, which sent him to his grave essentially on the receptions. And now I'm not sure that I think volume unders on receivers too is great. Like an under receptions on. I know Pat mentioned it last week on one of the other guys, Garrett Wilson, and that would have gotten there. Literally every prop under on a passing game for the Jets would have gotten there. And the Broncos pass defense is really, really strong. Pat Surtain obviously just notably locked down Mike Williams, has allowed fewer than 67 yards in every single game so far in coverage. I don't know if he really shadows anyone in this game. Is anyone really worth shadowing? I guess Garrett Wilson, but I just think that there's so many great spots here just to play some unders. They're probably just going to run with Breece Hall and maybe have some decent success. So I think that's probably going to be their game plan here.
It's funny because I agree with you, but I looked at my numbers. It loves Zach Wilson overs. Loves them. Not even close. I think what is his passing prop this week? Like 170 or something like that?
I don't think anything's out yet.
I hadn't seen anything. That's why I didn't put it to a number. But
let's
see.
see. Prize Picks might actually have 175 and a half passing yards for Zach Wilson is what they're posting as their prop. I have a 241, which I don't believe, but like that's crazy.
I thought it would be like 190. Man, 170 is tough, but
that's why I like the attempts. That's why I like attempts and completions more than the yards, because you also just take out the variance of a spike play too. We're at 221 for yards. We're at 34.5 for attempts, which feels high, because I'm with you there, Connor.
I got 37.5.
Wow. Okay.
Oh man.
Do you think I was going to say, do you think it changes with Russ at all for you, Pat?
I believe his name is Mr. Unlimited. If you didn't know, I think he's going to play. I love Russ. Russ is great.
It's good for
content. Brings me so much joy.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's it's on my list for sure. That and Breece Hall rushing attempts over, because we've seen him kind of emerge there as the main guy. We've seen it now since Wilson's been under center. Jets are 25th in pass rate over expectation, -7%. And we've actually seen teams skew to the run against Denver too by about 3% in a typical matchup versus, trying to throw on them. So I think there's a lot of reasons here why I think it's probably a good play. So I'm interested to see where the attempts, I do think that the attempts is probably where I would go over the yards. Watch, make a note. It's a good look.
I think that also in that same game, I think that there could be an opportunity with some Melvin unders or Latavius overs again, just based on what Nathaniel Hackett said. He kind of came out and was like, "Oh, Melvin's our starter this week." We talked some things out. I mean, I'm not buying that. Like, I mean, sure, he's going to start the game, but like even Nathaniel Hackett the next day walked it back and was like, "Oh, well, he's going to start, but we'll see how it shakes out. We want to get the other guys going too, because we got 3 guys that we want to give the ball to." That was the next, which that quote did not get as much publicity. But like, he's just like, he's a coward. He doesn't care about this stuff. He's just going to walk it back and probably play whoever's playing best, like he did. Latavius was playing fine. I mean, he looked good at sometimes. So I think that there will be some good times for more Latavius overs. I mean, we're not going to get 12.5 like we got last week, but maybe 30s, we'll see, and then maybe some Melvin Gordon unders, we'll see.
Yeah, big if true. We had Andy in the chat telling us that we were in charge of the Elijah Moore trade request. He actually referenced 4 for 4 in the prop drop show and requesting his trade. So we got to watch out for that, out here moving markets and requesting trades. So Pat, how about you? Number 4, or this is my favorite part, because you typically have like 3 or 4 that you want to like ballpark and throw out at us.
So here are the ones. I mean, you took Pierce, so I'll scratch that one off. I really like the over on that one as well. I had Geno Smith under 18.5 rushing yards. Dalton Schultz over 31.5 receiving yards, which seemed really low for the expectation that we had of him coming into the year, where he would essentially be, even with Gallup back, the number 2 receiving option in this offense, where I don't know what this prop was week 1, but I assume it was like 51.5, something like that. He seems to be completely healthy. Dak is back. Bad defense. Like, I know I don't love the over yardage, but that's not a lot of yards to get over. So I don't mind that. There was a Kate Otten over 2.5 receptions, but I think that's juiced up to like minus 185. So I'm not taking that. Rachaad White, again, he got there by a hair. By a half yard on the yardage, by 2 receptions. That was nice. But he's 16.5 in terms of the receiving game this week. I like the over on that. But the one I'm going to go with, because I've just had a lot of success with these quarterback rushing unders. Burrow's line's inflated right now. It's 12.5. And it goes one of 2 ways. He's either nowhere near this or he's way over this. And when you go and take a look at what he's done in terms of the rushing game, I think he's 3 of 6 so far in going on this number. So a complete 50-50. But the teams that he's done it against, it is Pittsburgh, weeks 1 and week 2. So Dallas and Pittsburgh, and he did it last week against the Saints, who found their pass rush all of a sudden. Even against Arizona, it actually turned out to be to their detriment against Arizona, which I think is a really interesting schematic thing against Kyler Murray, is that every time that they actually got a lot of pressure, it was good news for Arizona, because then Kyler just rolled out and ran away from everyone for first downs. Like, you'd be better off rushing 2 against Kyler and be like, "Hey man, try to beat us, dare ya."
Yeah.
And he can't do it. But once you start getting him moving, he becomes super dangerous all of a sudden. So I thought that was somewhat interesting. You could almost play like the old Like we had a rushing quarterback in high school who was by far our best player. It was just like, they were going to rush one and just put two guys on the edges to make sure that he couldn't get outside the tackle box. That's almost what you should do against Kyler Murray in a weird way. But the
Saints kind of did last night.
Yeah, eventually. But at first, like all those first downs that he converted in the first half, all rushing and just they were getting pressure up the A gap. And then boom, Kyler gets forced to the outside and then they can't contain him anymore. So with Burrow, pass rush, two of the best teams. This is when TJ Watt was still playing too, that they just got him off his spot. Not that the Bengals offensive line is any good, but these are like super good pass rushes. And the Saints really ratcheted it up last week. We saw it again last night when they wanted to. It seems like their pass rush is back too. Atlanta, worst pass rush in football. Not even close. So if Burrow isn't pressured, there's no designed Burrow rushes. It's a lot like the Pickett thing. Like if daylight is there, he will take it. But here's the thing. There's just going to be so much clutter in front of him because Atlanta's defensive line sucks so much. He ain't running under 12.5.
Like it. We're right there. We're at 12. But I think you make a great point. Yeah, you want the quarterback to have to be flushed out. He's not going to be flushed out. Like they had, I think last year had the lowest pressure rate in the league over the last decade. They ran back basically the same defensive line, tried to draft a couple of kids in like the third and fourth round. Those guys aren't really doing anything. And we had like one game early in the season. I think it was the Saints game. We were like, what's going on with this pass rush? And now they've regressed right back to where we thought they would be. So yeah,
it's twofold at the same time. Like their defense is actually better this year. Like it's not like last year they were the worst defense in football by a pretty large margin. And a lot of that had to do with their only good player being AJ Terrell, who's like not good this year, which is really strange. But they had no pass rush. And as I mentioned, they have no pass rush this year. In adjusted sack rate this season, they're 4.1%, which is actually right next to Cincinnati, the two worst teams in football at getting to the quarterback. Then you have Jacksonville, Carolina, and Detroit. But that's still improved from last year. And they were the 32nd ranked defense last year. They're like 23rd this year. So it's hard to be the worst defense 2 years in a row, just like it's hard to be the best defense 2 years in a row. Defense is just too variant driven like that. Like, could you be the best offense? Yeah. If you keep the same guys, see no reason not to. And if you didn't change your personnel on offense and you were the worst, chances are you're going to be the worst again. Defense doesn't really work like that. So they've gotten opportune pressures. Like I remember very vividly in the Seattle game when Gino was coming back down to beat them at the end. What did they do? Boom, drop him for 17 yards. They got to Brady. They sacked Brady. Didn't count, but they got to him.
Yeah,
and it should have counted. So they've just been a very opportunistic defense in that sense. But overall, like you mentioned, the worst adjusted sack rate in all of football. They generate no pressure. Historically bad. You got to go the under.
Yeah. Like, look, sound reasoning. Connor, anything to add here on Burrow unders?
No, I like the handicap and just one small thing. I think on the game there, I think that the Falcons are able to kind of like suck the life out of some of this game here with the running attack because, Bengals without DJ Reader, we talked about on the show last week, have, been below average in run defense since they lost DJ Reader. And I expect the Falcons to be able to have at least some success running the ball, kind of like, soak up some play volume there. So probably see, just less overall play volume in this one.
What's the better bet, guys? Is it Atlanta plus 6.5 or is it Atlanta money line?
I'll probably take the 6.5.
I'll probably do an 80-20 split between my money.
Yeah.
You're
probably right. Yeah, I just think they can hang.
Money line. Yeah.
Yeah, they can hang, but I don't know that I think that they go in there and win. I don't know that they have that, but they're feisty.
Well, they're feisty, and Connor hits it. Like, they just suck the air out of the game. They have two fullbacks and then random 3 running backs, all with really different skill sets. And then you have the Mariota rushing option as well that shortens the game time. Fewer plays are run in the game, and points just become so much more valuable in a game like that. And if all of a sudden Zach Taylor goes back to being the moron he was the first 5 weeks, where every first down is run up the middle with Joe Mixon for -1 yard, shortens the game even more.
I know that was the thing going into last night when we met with Solak. I kind of was leaning Bengals, the first game we talked about, because I was excited. I'm like, well, they went on basically every snap other than like a kneel down. They went shotgun. Yeah, and it was like, it worked. What are they going to do? Like, this kind of takes them out of doing some things that are problematic for them. And then Solak just, buried it and poked a hole through everything and just was, all in on the Falcons as well. So it's like, all right, well, I can get there. It makes a little bit more sense to me. I'm definitely not taking the Bengals after that. So yeah, good show worth listening to.
Well, I do think as well that part of the reason that they went out of shotgun is because all of a sudden the Saints got guys back. They had no corners to deal with, so you could pass all over them, but they really had to be wary of the pass rush and how good New Orleans generally is at stopping the run. Outside of a few big plays on Thursday night, that's usually their calling card on the defensive side of the ball. So you put yourself out in shotgun, just commit to not running and pass all over them with a depleted secondary. I mean, I think the Saints have given up 30 points, an average of 30 points in the past 6 games. Like, their defense sucks.
Yeah, it's been rough. No Marcus Davenport, no Marcus Lattimore. It's not great.
Yeah, last 3 games they've been like bottom 5 in like EPA, DVOA, like a bunch of stuff. Like literally the last 3 weeks they've been really bad.
I'm going to go through a few that I'm waiting for and looking at as well before I give you my last one. Although real quick, I want to mention I really like the look that you had with Dalton Schultz. That popped at like 29.5. I went to bet it. It was gone. And then it wasn't back up. So now it's back up at 31.5. It's not much different. Yeah, I love the way you handicapped that. And then also Detroit has been just terrible over the middle, 28th in pass DVOA against tight ends. I think it's a really sound look there. What else are we looking at? You mentioned the Wilson unders for the Jets. Breece Hall carries, I think, is probably a good look. I mentioned Lamar rushing. I think that's going to be a play for me, depending if that's probably in like the high 50s or so, is something I'm definitely interested in. I want to see if the if the Giants hang anything with Wandale. I want to watch that carefully because he didn't play a lot, 35% of the routes last week. I think that probably increases here. I'm really considering unders on Trevor Lawrence, probably unders on completions. He has really bad against the blitz. And I think it was Warren Sharp was talking about how a lot of teams nowadays are mixing coverage behind the blitz. Basically, it used to be almost exclusively you'd see teams play man behind blitz, even sometimes cover zero. And Wink Martindale does that a ton. More so, we're seeing a lot of teams play zone. And there's pretty drastic splits for Lawrence when teams play man behind the zone, man behind the blitz or zone behind the blitz. And the Giants play man, and Lawrence is like 3.5 yards per attempt in those scenarios. I think he really struggles here. I think the Giants are very feisty. I know this is a much talked about game with his 5-1 team as a 3-point dog against a 2-4 team on the road here. I think the Giants are very feisty here, and I think that's going to play itself out in the prop market through Lawrence. So I'm going to continue to look a little bit more into that.
I have one comment about the Giants defense. It's bad, and no one seems to realize that. And if their defensive coordinator's name wasn't Wink Martindale, no one would think that they were good.
They're not good. They don't have a lot of talent, though they are getting Leonard Williams back. They are getting Kayvon Thibodeau back. So
like they're 30th in rushing defense. They're 20th in pass defense.
There's almost nothing that they are good at.
They have Saquon. Saquon's good.
Yeah, it keeps the ball away. Yeah, when you look at like anything from like a success rate, EPA per play, they just kind of are like you talked about with Atlanta, but even a little bit better when you're opportunistic. He knows how he's dialing up things in the right way. And we've seen kind of even last week in a very like up-paced, up-tempo game where they had to play from behind even against the Colts. We saw a negative pass rate over expectation for Lawrence. Like I think they're in certain situations maybe trying to hide him a little bit, or at least not like turning it over for him to go loose. So like I said, I want to dig into it a little bit, but I'm leaning under on some Lawrence stuff. But the last one I'm going to play is kind of in the same vein. It is a under 32.5 passing attempts for Taylor Heineke. This is minus 120 on MGM. I think I saw it move earlier to 31.5. Still in this range, I think is fine. Packers are mostly a run funnel defense right now. Overall play volume in this game, I think, is going to be a concern. The Packers have those games have produced the league's fewest combined plays, according to Pat Thorman in his pace and snaps article. 117 per game is comfortably the last in the league. In the last season, we saw this with Heineke. He was the quarterback, as we know. Weeks 11 through 18, they shifted to a very, very run-centric game plan. They ranked 25th in pass rate expectation from weeks 11 to weeks 18 with Heineke there. So I don't think there's going to be a ton of play volume. I think if you kind of look and project this with Carson Wentz stats, which probably feeds a lot of projections here, this might not necessarily pop, but I think they are going to try to run the football. I think this is how you attack Green Bay. So Heineke under 32.5 attempts. I think probably under on completions. I think is like 21.5. I think it's probably a viable look too. But what do you think here, Pat?
I mean, just looking at the situation neutral stats right now, and even if it's within 6 points, these are two of the slowest teams in football. So I think that makes a ton of sense. And a lot of that can be influenced by rushing the ball so many times that would lead towards that under. You know what game I actually kind of like to be an over? And I don't know if people are on the same page as me, is the Cleveland-Baltimore game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sound that way based on what you were saying. Yeah, I don't hate that at all. What was the one that? I think actually Sharp Clark played for us. He played this game over, this Washington Green Bay game, and I
don't know why.
I don't know why.
Yeah, like I could see Denver Jets having more points in this game solely because like the Jets and Broncos defense might score 2 touchdowns apiece.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers might just be really bad. And
but here's the thing. We know that the Packers could be really bad. We know the Commanders are really bad.
Correct. Yeah. Connor, what are your thoughts on Heineke? I know this feels like it's in your lane, but I don't know if you jumped in.
No, I like it. I guess my concern with the attempts is like it just depends on how the game ends up, like game script, but like the spread on this is close. Like I don't think it's really all that like concerning that the Packers, they're like, look, go out to a big lead because they're going to go run heavy. They should have success on the ground because the Packers run defense is really bad. And I think that matters. Like if they're just going to be, running into a brick wall on first down, I mean, they're going to have to throw like 2 or 3 downs. Like if they have success on the ground on first down, it actually, I think, tends to less passing and more like a closer game in general. So yeah, I like it. I think it's a good play. I should probably tail it in the Discord. It was something that, I think I was, on a plane this morning when you played it and hadn't had too much time to look it over.
You were trying to find a room that was quiet and had Wi-Fi better than whatever
4.8 megabytes per second. I mean, I sent you a picture. I've never seen that. I mean, we're still rolling though. We're about an hour in. So
yeah, no, you've been fine. No problem there. So yeah, that wraps it for the props. I'll do some tackles here, but let's talk about Thrive real quick. If we didn't hear at the top, Thrive Fantasy, download the app, use promo code 4for4. You can use that promo code and you'll get a free betting sub at 4for4. Again, covering all major sports. The betting sub gets you access to everything on the site. You definitely want to check that out. Thrive has a prop lobby where you can build, similar to some other players out there in the pick'em space. But they also have a prop GPP game that is paying $20K to first. This week, there are plenty of seats still available. Connor, have you gone through the Thrive lobby and looked at some plays that you like this week?
Yeah, I've looked at a couple here, a few that I really like. DJ Moore under half touchdown. I mean, it's not even, but it's a little bit closer than it should be. Najee Harris under 1.5 touchdowns. You're only getting 50 points, but I don't think that's don't think that's in danger at all here. Then there was one more that I really, really liked. I just I'm scrolling through and don't remember exactly where it was. Oh, CeeDee Lamb, 6.5 receptions. I mean, that's rich. Like we don't expect Dallas to pass the ball a ton. Like, of course, the upside's there, and maybe in future weeks, but I don't know. That's a lot of catches, like right off the bat here.
Yeah, I think that's high. The one that's way off market too, Austin Eckler, 50.5 rushing yards. He's like 60.5 everywhere. Kind of juiced to the over, so that's probably moving. I also think Tua over 20.5 completions is a pretty good look here too. We're
watch out with any Tua overs just because one bad hit he's done.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Yeah.
Tyreek is a little off market. That's a good point though. But Tyreek's proven to be kind of quarterback proof. His receiving yards is up to 81.5 here on Thrive. I think in the prop market in general, it's still in the high 70s, like 78 or so. I played 74.5 at open, but I think Tyreek he's been incredible this year. I don't care if it's Teddy or, Skylar Thompson or Bob Greasy. The Tyreek stuff has been pretty good. So yeah, get a free t-shirt if you sign up this weekend over at Thrive. Again, promo code 4for4, thrivefantasy.com. Get signed up there and take advantage on Thrive. So give you a couple more tackle props before, because the chat is slacking here. We talked about Jermaine Pratt, Cincinnati. That's a good one. We talked about already in Deshaun Elliott for Detroit. It's a good one. We are 100% going back to Alex Singleton. If Josie Jewell is in fact out, which I think is going to be the case. Denver here, as we just talked about, we expect a pretty rush-heavy attack from the Jets. And Singleton is coming off of a 21 tackle game, 19 solo tackles, which is just absolutely insane. Very interested to see what the books hang him at. Probably 9.5 now, which is still fine. I have no problem with him getting there. Jalen Petrie is a safety for the Texans. He's the box safety in this game against the Raiders, who I think we think could be up comfortably at a point in this game. Or at least should see a lot of Josh Jacobs carries here. Petrie is interesting. He probably gets hung at like 5.5, which I think is pretty light. He and Jonathan Owens are both pretty viable looks. Owens has been just piling up tackles this season. He's not the box safety, though, which is kind of unusual when you look at pretty much any other team in the league. It's the box safety who has a higher tackle rate and more tackles. I think it's just because the linebackers are so bad in Houston that they let a lot of stuff get to the back end. So Petrie and Owens, I think, are both pretty good looks. Nick Bolton, I'm on the fence with this. Bolton has at least 9 in every game. Linebacker for the Chiefs. He's the only linebacker. He plays 100% of the snaps, does not come off the field. The only one on the Chiefs that does so. 10% tackle rate on the season. He's 5th in the league in total tackles. I just kind of think about how that game goes. I think we know San Francisco wants to run the football. A good amount of opportunities there. If you kind of like the Chiefs to maybe win big, which I personally don't necessarily. I think you can think the game script kind of gets away from that, but I think Bolton makes a ton of sense. And then CJ Mosley in that same game with our guy, Alex Singleton. Mosley is a linebacker for the Jets. At least 10 tackles in 5 of 6. 4th in the league in tackles, just kind of a year in and year out stud from a tackle standpoint. So those are some of the main looks for me this week in the tackle streets. Again, those are going to be given out probably Sunday morning over on 444, our Discord. Again, part of the subscription if you were to hop into the betting sub. So those are some of the looks. We'll fire off a parlay over in Prize Picks as well, but you're only going to get the official plays when you're in the Discord. So don't hold me to those, but those are looks we're definitely want to look at and see what the books post, Connor.
I love it. Yeah. And some little breaking news here as the show is going. J.K. Dobbins officially announced out for this weekend. I think that we could get some, nice looks on Kenyon Drake, who's looked good.
Gus Bus?
Yeah,
Gus
maybe Gus
Bus.
Bus. Yeah, maybe Gus Bus. We'll see. I don't know. It depends on what they drop it at. But the matchup's good. Browns' run defense has been super bad. Bottom 2 in pretty much every metric. So I think that is interesting. Also too, I'm wondering if Sportsbooks will just let us cash our J.K. Dobbins under 925.5 rushing yards in the season now, or if we have to wait until the end, because he is not going to even get to 500 this season based on how this is going. He's at like 120 through, I guess, now 7 weeks.
The Christian Watson one feels pretty good as well. He
under 700.
Yeah, he hasn't played forever, and that was I think my first future of the season was the Christian Watson play. So yeah,
he played that in May. That was just like, that was cash.
Yeah, bad line. So, all right, gentlemen, enjoy that as always. Pat, remind everyone where they can find all of your tremendous content.
You can find it at the Mayo Media Network on YouTube, Pat Mayo Experience on podcast networks such as Apple or Spotify. May have heard of them. Might as well go sub. All right.
Sub, it's worth it. Good stuff as always. Connor, it might be a light card for you this week. I don't know what's going on, but I know that you'll be in the corner in the wedding. You'll be that guy, Saturday night waiting to see what's dropped, just kind of desk scrolling, refreshing. What's on the docket for you?
Yeah, I'll be phone scrolling and grinding the props. Maybe go get some drinks, go down to the beach right now, and start grinding some more props. See what else comes out. These props came out really late this week. Like it was, a couple hours ago, and they're still dropping like the majority of stuff. So I actually prefer it that way for the market, but still, I think that it'll end up being a good week. Just slow off the top here for me.
Yep. So check all that stuff out again in the Discord as always. Check out the Thrive, all that stuff in the show notes. Subscribe, rate and review, smash the like button, share it with your friends. Again, goes a long way in helping keep the lights on, allows us to do lots of different cool things, bring on very sharp people who basically go 8-0 in the last 2 weeks like Pat, helps us a lot. So do all those things, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah!